So what I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about today is governance compliance, as Ron mentioned, but really it gets into real-time visibility into what we'll call drift compliance and inventory of your cloud resources and why that's important. So to kick that off, hold on a sec, apologize. There we go. To kick it off, why is this a concern? If you look at what Gartner says, by 2023, which is coming up here, 99% of all cloud security failures will be the customer's fault. So we've really taken this in terms of how we've developed our SaaS tool and why this is important, of why cloud configuration monitoring is important. It really leads you to that visibility to help you stop those security failures that are going to be coming up as you move more workloads to the cloud. Second, we'll talk about taking some steps to gain visibility and governance over your drift. So being able to see what's changing out there, why it's changed, and be really able to zero in on things that you need to worry about and take care of right away within your cloud infrastructure. So let's start out by why this is important. As everybody has seen, your cloud environment is not static, nor do you want it to be static. Right? Part of the purpose of the cloud is for an agile environment that you can have business transformation happening at a rapid pace or the pace that you need it to change at. So things start happening out there when you start utilizing the cloud. One is resource change. Resources are consistently changing out there. Let's say, for instance, a resource is added. The change could violate your standard benchmark or maybe an industry standard compliance, SOC 2, high trust, etc. If no action's taken to remediate that as it sits out there, you have a security hole and maybe a compliance hole where you are at risk for audits, etc. Cost spikes are another big one. As the environment changes, and this one we've seen multiple times, where once we get out and monitoring the configurations out in the cloud, let's say somebody spins up a Hadoop cluster on a Friday to do a data research project. They're spinning it up, they're doing their research, happy hour comes, they all go home. Well, if those resources are left running, it could very easily cost your company $10,000 by the end of the weekend. So how do you know what's happening so you can take real-time decisions to stop that from occurring and save the company money? And the big one, of course, that Scott talked about too, is security. Let's say you have a resource out there and somebody makes a configuration changes and makes an RDP port open, okay? Well, that of course creates a network security issue. And if you don't know about that, you have a port where a bad actor could take advantage of it, and you could be at large financial risk, or your company could be at large financial risk for that hole if it's exploited out there. So with the cloud, we talked about it being very agile. There are a lot of different people out there in a lot of different groups that you want to take advantage of the cloud, and that's one reason why the cloud is so important or so good is the resources are closer to the user. Well, that induces drift to occur. People are out there making changes, groups are out there making changes, and there's a lot of noise out there of different things that are happening. So how do you detect the patterns across security, cost, compliance in more of a real-time manner to know what's important and not be reactive about it, be more proactive about it to encourage the change in a proactive manner or a manner best for the company? That's where OpsCompass comes in, and we're really concentrating. We want to be able to sift through all that drift and all that noise and all that change and really give you a channel that pushes it through and where you can make decisions of what you need to do for the best business outcomes. Maybe it's blocking, maybe it's an exception, maybe it's just a notice, hey, this is a great pattern, we should utilize this elsewhere. We also then create that feedback loop back to the policy engines in the different clouds so you can update things, right? You always can't catch everything up front of what you need to block or allow through or exceptions. But if you're seeing what's happening at the different patterns and cloud patterns that people are using out there, your ability to see that and give that feedback loop back to your pipeline and different groups so they can react and make changes as they go forward. One way we like to view this is using the OWASP Cyber Defense Matrix as a model. to visualize where this becomes very important in your environment. So as you can see up here, we've overlaid it to a cloud environment, and really looking at some of the different acronyms out there: CSPM, CASB. There's many different acronyms out there. SIM, of course, everybody's worried has a SIM, and it's a very important part of your environment. But what this shows is you really need to look at that whole security posture, proactive, across all the IaaS to PaaS to users, and be able to have processes and technology to upfront see what's happening and be able to make decisions on that data. That lowers your cost and your risk in case of something that does happen. So what do we do about this? Okay, what are some best practices that we found as we've been out there with our tooling? The first is identify resource posture. Okay, there are a lot of different cloud resources that everybody's using in a multi-cloud environment, and what we found is very rarely do people or companies understand their full cloud footprint. What we could do as a tool, or you could do it going through different tooling in the clouds, is gain an inventory asset of everything that's running in your cloud. And be able to say, okay, what's the rate of change that's happening, right? You don't want that static. You want to be able to understand what the rate of change is happening and when things have change across those different assets and what problems are occurring. Now, one question we get asked a lot is, what do I use for baseline? How do I know what's considered a good configuration state and a bad? We suggest is using, to start out with, is a CIS or a NIST standard to really understand what my security profile is, or what would be considered a good cloud state. From there, you can start adjusting that depending on regulatory concerns, and we have those built into the product too, a SOC 2, high trust, etc., where they will play on top of the CIS NIST and give you that full understanding of more security you may need. We also in the tool suck in, for instance, Azure Security Center and the other security modules from the clouds to give you, we have a score 2 that gives you a composite score across all your clouds. And this is interesting too. The gamification has also happened with us, is once this is out there, companies really come back, and it becomes individuals really come back of how to get rid of the red, how to actually, we've seen it show up in performance appraisals. Hey, look at all the problems I fixed. So it's a good way to be able to describe what's out there and how they've fixed their clouds and what's going on. Next, the security posture. This is probably one of the most important aspects, is being able to understand what's happening in a multi-cloud environment and what I need to do to remediate, to stop, or be proactive on my posture to stop bad things from happening. So really, the first thing is visibility, is understanding what my true risk is. What's running out in the cloud, what's considered open compared to a third-party standard like CIS, and be able to act on the critical ones first. Usually when we set up our SaaS tool, within 2 hours, we'll have a score. And what we find is low-hanging fruit is a lot of companies have either ports open, and especially unencrypted drives, usually non-intentional, that are sitting out there for the public, in the public cloud, that could be exploited. So you want to take care of that low-hanging fruit, maybe have a hit list of let's get secure first. Next step is set up alerting and what's important to you. So we saw earlier, not all the drifts that are occurring are important, but maybe there's categories of them that you want to make sure that you're watching and be able to have, let's say, 1 hour response to, okay, we want to get that into the next pipeline to make sure that that's taken care of in the next sprint. And of course, then review and adjust your policy engines back on the clouds. Okay, drift will occur. Do I need that to be blocked up front, or am I going to allow that through and have an exception? Finally, you want to make sure you have process around this, not as just a state and a time that you've just done this once, a static run of of your environment, but what is the process or the Cloud Center of Excellence in terms of their visibility that you can set up and use a data-driven decision to really accelerate cloud adoption in a secure manner. So you want to be able to have feedback loops to the XOps organizations. For instance, we have a customer that's running our tooling, and anytime a drift occurs, what happens is the person really in charge of that is the DevOps leader. And what they're doing is making sure that schedules are happening in the pipeline. So they're fixing it on the back end as new solutions come out or updated solutions, that they have the right new posture in place. So with that, short and sweet, I just wanted to give an overview of why we think configuration drift is very important. Very happy to have further discussions of how we can help you or give you a view of what your environment looks like to get you started. A couple websites out there. I know this will be on the deck too. There's our general website where you can see what some of the things that we'll do. I also included our Waypoint, which is our blog, which we've been publishing a lot of good information around drift, why it's important, different types of drift, etc. That could be more information for you to follow up on.